How resolute are you in the face of danger? What does it mean to hold the line? And could you abide by the philosophy of no backward step? This is the Imperial Fists. Today here on Thursdays with Horus. I'm your host, Carter. This is a 5-Up recovery here. Staying sober through the hobby. A little bit of coffee and no judgment whatsoever how you want to live your life. I just find that the hobby has been a successful tool for me, and staying positive and having a new outlook on life. So, Imperial Fists. Well, first of all, let's go. What's on your hobby table? Please, as always, throw in the comment section what you're working on these days. Post, whatever you can, whatever you want. I love discourse, back and forth and all that good stuff. And actually, I'm doing the Imperial Fist because it was requested today. After I did the Iron Warriors, someone popped on and said, what about the Imperial Fist? So I did my Knight's break from the Legions, and we're back. Imperial Fists, I've done a little bit of studying up, and as always, wrote a cool, fluffy list to take a look at. And currently on my hobby table, I am plugging away through Knights. I'm here in Northeast Ohio, so the priming season is closing very soon. I think Sunday is going to be 55 and sunny, and it's the last day I've got to prime stuff. So I'm furiously trying to build things so that I've got a lot of backstock for the winter coming up, because I want to do a lot of painting, and I always end up finishing all my painting in 2 weeks, and then I'm stuck for 3 months with nothing to paint. But we're going to, and again, what a problem to have, right? I don't have enough backlog, so I'm building up a lot of stuff. I've got a Knight Questoris in sections right now. I decided to go with the thermal cannon and the Thunderstrike Fist. I needed something to pop vehicles, and I just think it was such a cool combo. I'm having trouble deciding on the faceplate, because that's the problem with Knights, is that every single faceplate is cool. And you could only pick 4 or 5 of them for your whole army across the board. My Cerasis Knight Lancer was nice enough to do some priming, so I've got everything spray painted, everything painted. I just need to put it all together. And I do the eyes as well, so not quite completely painted. And I'm looking at some armigers and a Knight Acheron next. Then I'll be working on Alpha Legion, a little bit of Salamanders, and my Death Guard are kind of done, but I'm looking to expand them with some Phosphex quad launchers and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the hobby table. That's what's going on. So why don't you grab yourself a beverage or a hobby knife or a paintbrush, and we'll dive into the Imperial Fists. Oh, always been a favorite. I've had 2 or 3 friends that played Imperial Fists over the years, so I've always you get that vicariously, they're not your army, but you enjoy them, you get to see their units and stuff like that. That's always fun. Fluff-wise, they are resolute, the siege masters. They build, the best fortresses. They are best at being besieged. They are led by Rogel Dorn, who is a dutiful son. Very serious, very clear-cut. He does the job no matter how difficult, how hard, how impossible it is. He does the job. That's Rogel Dorn. The Fists themselves have a really cool philosophy. What they have, viable and non-viable. Kind of reminds me of the when you were looking at the Ultramarines. They have their theoretical and their practical. Well, it's like the Imperial Fist. It's is this viable or is it non-viable? Okay, we need to defend this river, say, or this bridge over a river for 45 hours until the resupply can finish, behind us and stuff like that. Is this 45 hours viable, non-vi? Well, 25 hours is vi, but 45 is non-vi. Just really cool, viable, non-viable, really interesting, and just kind of that logic, that cold hard logic that they would exercise. Lots of good books. I've not read too much about them during the Horus Heresy, but the Siege of Terra is all it's all Imperial Fists all the time. They, Rogel Dorn during the Horus Heresy has been building up the strongholding Holy Terra. He has been building up every single crenellation, covered every battlement with guns and void shields upon void shields upon void shields. He's like filled in roads with rockcrete to create new, like, you know, trench lines and things like that. He's completely turned the entire planet into a defensible, like, you know, war fortress. And you actually kind of start to see the strictures that come in for 40K. How Terra is, you know, this desolate wasteland of just you know, continent-sized cities, where you're starting to see, you know, the Horus Heresy and the Siege of Terra is definitely where it pushes Terra into, you know, ironically, Rogaldorn's trying to save the planet, and by, you know, putting such a fist around it, he has almost made it into its dystopian future. Siege Terror is great. Reading the Siege, you see the conversion from Horus Heresy clearly to 40K. The rise of, like, Chaos Space Marines, the splintering of the war bands, you know, Abaddon rising up to power, and, you know, kind of finding his destiny. I'm drifting from the Imperial Fists, but it's really interesting seeing the collapse of the Imperium in real time during the Siege of Terra, and the Imperial Fists are there the whole time. Tons of characters. I mean, it's like they were the poster boys of the first or the second edition, along with the Sons of Horus, and like both of them just have like buckets of named characters. Season 2 of the show, when we start going through named characters, we will do probably like a month to 6 weeks just on the Imperial Fist characters, because there's Fafnir Ran, there's Cambra Diaz, Sigismund, of course, Sigismund, probably the best swordsman, possibly the best fighter across like all of the Horus Heresy. You know, I'm pretty sure he goes up against Fulgrim at one point and holds his own. So many characters, and they really do all have this, you know, this complete resolute stand against adversity and their adversaries. Every single one kind of struggles, I'd say, with the siege, because you're seeing like this impossible task and this failure that is, you know, just mounting and mounting and mounting as they're losing and losing and losing. You know, no backward step, and like, what do you do when you have to take a backward step to save the Imperium? You know, it's seeing all these characters struggle with the, you know, how they are built, designed, and what their purpose is, and then putting them into the biggest impossible meat grinder possible. It's interesting to see. Lots of drama, lots of high drama. So I'd say Saturnine is a fantastic book if you're looking for one specific novel out of everything. I also really liked the Solar War, the very first one. You just start to get a lot of Dorn. You know, you start getting Rogaldorn as like a main character. And I'd say that during the Siege of Terra, he is one of like the 10 central characters. You know, there's like hundreds and hundreds of characters, probably thousands in that story, but like the Siege of Terra really takes like 10 perspectives, if you will, really, and follows them very close, and one of them is Rogaldorn. So let's get into what they hit in their kit as, you know, for their actual rules, and then I'll jump into the list that I did for these guys. Really interesting kit. First of all, in their armory, they get a special power fist called the Solarite Power Gauntlet, which, that's my boys. I love Power Fist so much, and to have a specific Legion-specific one is just fantastic. It is a straight-up Power Fist, -3 initiative, regular attacks, +4 strength, AP2, 2 damage, and then it has critical hits 6 up. So it's just a better Power Fist for 5 points more. You've got that chance for criticals. Sold. I actually changed up. I was going to take a standard champion in my list, and then I was like, you know what? I'd rather have a dude with a Power Fist. So I went with a Terminator champion with a Power Fist to fit one of the units. So anyways, they've got the really nice Power Fists. You can give them to pretty much any Terminator or any Command Sergeant or champion. So even Sergeants can take them, which is pretty sweet. They're expensive, so caution there, but like really good for veteran squads. And then also they got a special unit. They have a prime advantage that can only go on a Centurion, and it upgrades him into a special unit, like almost like a console, called the Castellan. He gets an augury scanner for free, and then a heavy weapon between heavy bolter autocannon or the Elastis assault cannon, which is a special assault cannon they get with breaching. So, you know, you can't give them las cannons and stuff like that, but honestly, you know, you're about to see the Imperial Fists like to be firing bolt and auto weapons. So, he's just cool. He's got an augury scanner, so you plug him into a heavy support squad, and they don't need to take the additional upgrade points. He's already got it. He's also, you know, an extra heavy weapon in there for you. Win-win. So going into the kit itself, the Rite of War, the Legion Tactica is that when they get +1 to hit with bolt and auto weapons, as long as there's more than 5 shots in the strike group. So not just, you know, plus, they don't just get the +1 to bolt weapons and auto weapons all the time, but when you're firing large amounts of dice, which honestly you're almost always going to be firing. With bolt weapons, you're going to be handfuls of dice most of the time. So you're going to be seeing that proc a lot, especially with things like tactical squads, especially with things like Terminators with combi bolters. They really pop up the bolters. I took a lot in my list. The Gambit is crazy. You can you get rid of your focus. You get rid of your bonus of initiative to the focus roll to gain Eternal Warrior 1. You know, kind of a challenge. You either want to strike first or strike last and like strike hardest. And this lets you soak the blow and then come in, you know, so hey, really good for those power fists. You know what I mean? You soak the blow and come in with a critical hit power fist. Wacha. Detachment wise, they had a really good one. The Siege Gauntlet. 2 troop slots, one of which is prime, and then a shock assault, so you can pop in some Terminators, and a support squad. So you can either put in some of those nice rapier carriers, or you can pop in some heavy support squads, which I did. But the troop slots can only be taken with breachers. Now this is, we're in a really nice time. We just saw the Siege Battalion coming out, where they're releasing new breachers in plastic, and new cataphracti in plastic as well. And then they've got a big siege box that comes with 2 squads of cataphracti and a breacher squad. This detachment literally fits perfectly that box. So Imperial Fist units, like thumbs up. That's you got some good stuff coming up in the future. But yeah, really good detachment. Anytime that you can get in, you know, an extra prime slot, but fitting in those supports and the heavy assault or the shock assaults, tough to do. So it's nice to get a little combo of those in there. Finally, their advanced reaction is great. Something moves within 10 inches, they get a full shooting attack into it. Cut and dry, you know, it's fantastic. Tons of good targets for that, tons of good times you can throw it out. Obviously, until you use it, because it is once per battle, until you use it, it is going to just scare anyone from getting too close to your forces, especially within charge range. So it's just going to be a little mitigating distance. You know, some defense, some offense that is defensive, which is just perfect for the Imperial Fists, in my opinion. Finally, they get a special Decurion, which is the tank upgrades. They can only go on to a Kratos Predator or a Sicarin with the Accelerator autocannon or the Punisher rotary cannon, which, you know, both really nice for Imperial Fists. But this guy, it adds the Elastis assault cannon I was talking about earlier, which is a 3-shot at standard, 3-shot with heavy firepower at its standard fire, and that's with breaching 6 up, or it goes up to 5 shots with heavy firepower and overload 1. So it and breaching 6 up, of course. So it's range strength 6. Pretty good. Your wounded tacticals have 2s, you know what I mean? Breaching on 6s. Pretty powerful little assault cannon there. And like I said, you can take one on your Castellan too, as well as on this. You pretty much throw it onto any tank, any of those tanks as a nice little upgrade. And I think it's cool, especially as a modeling. You know, like a Kit Bash, you actually get to put the dude with an assault cannon up on top of the whatever the Predator, what have you. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that pretty much goes through the entire kit of the Imperial Fists. Last, I realized I'm supposed to be highlighting the special units, the special units that these armies get, so that I can figure out what I'm taking for my Alpha Legion. Still coming along on that, and I've been sort of adjusting over it and just putting them into the list itself, but I'm fully going to go into them now. I'll spend a little less time on the list because I type it up and I put it right underneath the, in the description of the channel and stuff like that, but I still like to walk through it somewhat and go through my choices. So without further ado, we've got the Templar Brethren and the Phalanx Warder Squad. Templar Brethren are an elite choice. They have a power sword, as well as an option to take combat shields for all of them, which I would. They have a 2-up save, 5 weapon skill, 3 attacks, 2 wounds. These are your veteran style assault guys. No jump packs on them or anything like that, but these are your close combat veterans. You can give the Power Gauntlet, of course, to the champion, or Thunderhammer, or any of the gear. And then all of them can take Melta Bombs for 25 points. They have one last rule, Templar Assault. If they come out of an assault vehicle, they get an extra 2 inches to their setup move, which is bonkers. So specifically in my list, I took a Land Raider for them to go in because, you want to get that assault vehicle going. Really cool unit. They lack Line or Vanguard, which is a little rough. But just an elite unit, tons of power swords, one nice, really heavy weapon, melee weapon sprinkled in there. These guys, I was going to put a champion with these guys because they'd be a good vehicle for a champion. And they're just Imperial Fists. You can give them the pistol, but I like the shields and the swords. It's just very, shield wall, classic style Imperial Fists. The Phalanx Warder Squad, once again, have shields. These guys have power axes this time and boarding shields. So they do have heavy and the shield trait. Shield trait lets you react with +1 to your toughness. Heavy means that you get +1 cool, but your setup move is lighter. Your setup move is smaller. You can't run, and you subtract from your focus roll. There's one more thing that it does, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So these guys are pretty cool. They got a 3-up, 5-up. They weapon skill 4 with 1 wound and 2 attacks. So they're also like 10 points cheaper than Templar Brethren. These are almost like I'd say like one step down. These are your less elite veteran style guys. They can use shield wall without spending a reaction, which is cool, but then they're all pinned afterwards, which kind of sucks. But if you really need them to survive and you don't need them going anywhere, like if they're just blocking an avenue for you, you don't need them holding an objective or anything like that, why not? They also lack Line or Vanguard, which is a little rough. So honestly, if I'm picking units for my Alpha Legion, I'm probably not going to touch these guys. I really need something. Alpha Legion lack a lot of Vanguard naturally. So I'm really looking for the Vanguard with that list, but that's just me specifically. These are really cool units, and I definitely included one of them in my list, which let's get into. The first thing I did before going to the full list, let's go into the character that I made. Because I want to, that's the whole point of this, is highlighting it. And I named him this time, Ingar Berg. Ingar Berg, which, you might, there's a director, Ingar Bergman, that's where I got, that there's everything I have is taken from something else, which actually Ingar Bergman once said, I steal art from everywhere, and that's how I make my art. And he's one of the greatest directors of all time. So, we're a tapestry of all we've seen, people. So Ingar Berg, he is a Castellan, of course, so he's a Centurion, and I gave him an autocannon. I love autocannons. Always have. I was disappointed when I first was playing 40k and realized that only Chaos got him, and I was like, well, I'm only going to play Chaos, Space Marine-wise. But back in the days of the Heresy, everyone can take them. So I gave him an autocannon, Ingar Berg. He's got an augury scanner. He's going to go pop into a big squad of autocannons, and they're just going to lay down some really good anti-elite fire. So that's Ingar Berg. Next up, I've got a Praetor in Saturnine armor. I decided to go, Saturnine are just so cool. I went pretty big into Terminators with this list. Terminators, shields, and wherever I could take those power fists, I took them. That was kind of the go-to with this list. And I knew that I was going to take a Praetor in Saturnine armor, and instead of taking the teleport pod, I was going to throw a Spartan with him and his buddies in. So let's get in. So the character-wise, we'll get into the high command. Here we go. We got our Saturnine and Praetor armor. We've got a Centurion Castellan with the autocannon. Then I took a Legion Centurion in Cataphracti armor. Gave him the Solarite Power Fist. And then we have a 20-man tactical squad. Just a good, sit on the home field objective or go into a midfield. Just a nice, who doesn't love a 20 block? And you're getting that +1 to hit with all those shots, which is nice. I took 2 Rhinos, which I'll talk about where they go later. And then lastly, prime slots. I already took 1 for the Castellan. Prime slot for the troops. I took a logistical benefit, good old Log Benny. I try not to take them, but the elites and the retinue slot are very, very... they're both coveted slots, and I needed both for the list I was making here. So I took that Log Benny with a retinue. I've got a 4-man Cataphracti Terminator squad. I gave them a Saturnine Concussion Hammer to the leader, and then I gave Twin Disintegrators and Disruption Fist with Particle Shredders to the squad itself. I'm probably going to kill a couple of my Terminators every battle, but it's going to do some damage. I was on the receiving end of those Twin Disintegrators recently. Holy moly. Yeah, you're going to damage yourself, but you're going to damage your enemy a whole lot more. Next up, I took the Siege Gauntlet as my first auxiliary detachment. Took 2 squads of 10 Breachers, both with 2 Las Cutters. Pretty cut and dry. They go into the Rhinos. They zoom out. They pop out. They try and pop some vehicles. They get onto objectives. They do all sorts of Breacher stuff with their shields. And being in a Rhino, helps them with, since they're heavy. So it gets them where you need them to be. So then I've got a support squad. I took I think it's like a 6 or 7-man autocannon because I was running out of points. But 7 autocannons for my Castellan to go in. They've got an augury scanner built in from the Castellan. They're going to be, taking on veteran squads, taking on Terminators and stuff like that, trying to push breaching through. Good, powerful shots. Next up, we got took a 10 block of Cataphracti. They all have Power Fists. I've got a Solarite Power Gauntlet on the champion. Love it. I love my Power Fists. They're going with the Centurion with the Solarite Power Gauntlet. Just a big old fun block. They are not in a transport. They are just going to be moving up the field, trying to push stuff off that center objective and score those Vanguard points. Okay, so I took an Apex detachment as well. Really quick, that one is just the Phalanx, or the Templar Brethren, excuse me. I took a big 10 block Templar Brethren. I gave them Melta-Bombs, so that way they can threaten infantry, or they can threaten knights, threaten vehicles a little bit. They are a nice big block of scary elite. I think it's going to be hard going into Terminators with them, but that's why I've got 2 big Terminator blocks in the list already, and they are going to be in a Land Raider carrier, so they get to kind of pick their fight. You know what I mean? They can stay in there until they get a juicy target. I took, of course, the Armored Fist because I needed heavy transports. So I took a Land Raider carrier for the Templar Brethren, and I took a Spartan Assault Tank for that 4-man squad of Saturnine Command Squad with the Saturnine Terminator, because they're bulky force. They need that big old Spartan. So that's the list. Yeah, 3 really scary melee blocks, lots of shooting lots of bolter fire from the tacticals, from the Terminators, from the autocannons, not bolter fire, but lots of +1 to your hits. From the Imperial Fist rule. I think it's gonna, the Land Raider and the Spartan are my only real long-ranged anti-vehicle, which I might struggle with, but I think that the Las Cutters will do a lot of work, and I also think that if the unit of Saturnines touch anything, I think anything in the game, it will melt. You got 2 of those hammers in there that'll, those will disrupt with weapon skill 5. Those scare knights. Like Saturnine Terminator champion, or Saturnine Praetor with a concussion Warhammer is going to come out on top versus almost any knight out there because of that weapon skill 5 and the damage that he's throwing out. And they both, he's got an invuln and they don't. Like, scary stuff, guys. But yeah, that's the list. Tell me what your thoughts were. Post your own Imperial Fist thoughts, or if I missed anything, your own synergies that you found or anything like that, let me know. This is just my humble opinion. All right. Have a good one, folks. Happy hobbying out there. Take care. Cheers.